Welcome everyone to the session on the EOSC portal. During this session, you will get an overview, you get an introduction to the EOSC portal, then a presentation of the resource catalog, followed by the marketplace. Then a quick note on how to onboard, leading up to a larger training session on that tomorrow. Then we have the providers portal, and wrapping up with the EOSC profiles and automated updates. During the session, we will be collecting your inputs via Slido, as those of you that joined this morning already know. The way to join is here. We'll also post that in the chat again so that you can go there if you no longer have the link or are just joining now. We are starting this session with an introduction by Mark Dietrich. Mark works and has worked for many years with research infrastructures around the whole world, leading funding bodies and infrastructures themselves, as well as consulting with those organizations on best practices and strategy. Mark assignments at EGI cover EU cloud computing, Edge and Internet of Things strategy, including hcloud.eu and EU and unlock.cei. And he also works on data spaces, including BDVA and Gaia X. I didn't know you were also working for Gaia X, Mark. So Mark, I'm going to hand over to you for a presentation on the EOSC portal. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Let me now perform the amazing feat of sharing my screen. Okay, you've had the introduction to me. So EOSC portal, what is it? Let's do a quick introduction. The public view of EOSC portal, when you go to EOSC-portal. Actually, I don't know what the last the domain is, but I think folks know where the address is. This is what you see. And it's basically the user approach, the user avenue for getting access to the resources and skills and capabilities of the EOSC portal. So if you were to click on log in, you see the upper right hand corner, you see log in. If I were to log in and then click down below, browse through the catalog, I would see a picture like this, sort of to the right, a list of resources, some categories, scientific domains, a whole bunch of things, sort of your basic shopping analogy, shopping metaphor. You can do a free format text search. You can use various filters to select the type of resource, the domain, target groups the resource might be created for, who is providing the resource, etc. So lots of ways of finding resources. What kind of resource types are there? There'll be a longer conversations about this later, but there are services of a wide range of kinds, computational resources, storage resources, data transfer capabilities, general analysis tools that could be used in many different domains, as well as domain-specific tools, so things that are just about computational chemistry or bioinformatics or analyzing humanities, corpus literature, etc. So there may be things that are very specific. There are collections of research products linked to from the EOSC resource catalog, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that. And then finally, quite a number of training tools. So how does it work? Well, the resource catalog works behind the scenes. So the user, a researcher, but frankly anybody can, with an appropriate login, can see these resources, and then when they are interacting with the website, they're actually interacting behind the scenes with this big blue ball of the EOSC resource catalog, and inside it is information about services, data sources, research products. And so these resource records are loaded manually by providers. So there's an interface, that yellow or orange thing called the providers portal, and then the provider goes in and loads, kind of dumps resource descriptions into that. And they can also use an API, an automatic programming interface to allow them to do this electronically, as opposed to having to do it manually. And there are providers who do it both ways. As we go forward, there are going to be some changes. And I have in this little asterisked footnote, there will be a number of changes that we're working on right now that will be released in June, as well as in September in the coming months. And you will get new information from us coming soon. So we're working on that now. So if you are a provider who is going to be touched by some of these changes, we'll be reaching out to you, giving you some advance warning, explaining what's going on, and then walking you through the process. So I just want to give you a little heads up about that. But what are the changes that we're working on? So you remember from the slide before, there was one yellow hole in the sphere into which we could put services. Now we're going to add some other flavors. We're going to explicitly talk about data sources. We're going to talk about catalogs, and then we're going to create another hole in the big blue sphere where research products can be loaded. Actually, we're going to be integrating with the open air capability, and that'll be merged with the EOSC resource catalog. And basically, you'll be presented as a user with a seamless array of possibilities. So this is the backside. We'll be exploring some of the details through the different presentations that will follow me, but I wanted to kind of orient you to the different roles and the different activities. What are the benefits of having a resource catalog? What are the benefits of creating this kind of structure? From a provider standpoint, it gives you the ability to have greater visibility for your services and your research products, as well as, and therefore more usage. So if your objective is to have more researchers using the service that you have created, then the EOSC resource catalog and putting that service in to that resource catalog and exposing it through the portal is going to be the way that you achieve that objective. So that's our mechanism for doing that. For the user, once this has happened, there are three main benefits. The first is there's more services there. There's more to find, and there's more eventually to put together into your own research enterprise, your own research workflows. So this is contributing to your ability to perform and be productive as a researcher. It gives you access to more data. It gives you more direct access to data electronically, online. It also will eventually, as we work on interoperability, it'll make it easier to find things that work together, services that consume the right kind of data, that generate data of a certain kind that you're looking for in your research world. And then finally, more ways to find resources. So we're providing a little bit more dimensions to allow the users to search for the kind of services that they need. So, you know, anybody who's experienced using a search engine like Google knows that you can get a bazillion answers. You know, your search returned 20 million records. Well, how are you going to sort through that? Well, this is what we're trying to address in some of the work we're doing in the resource catalog to make that list of 20 million websites that fulfill your search criteria, get it down to a couple of dozen so you can scroll through and find the ones that you want to work with. And I think that's all for me.
Thanks a lot, Mark. Then we're moving on. You've seen him twice already today. It's Paolo Manghi. This time he is here to present the resource catalog. For those of you who didn't join the session this morning and who don't know Paolo yet, Paolo is the technical director of OpenAir and involved in more EOSC projects and e-infrastructure projects than sessions at this event. So that means quite a lot because we'll be seeing Paolo throughout the week. So without further ado, Paolo, the floor is yours.
Hello again. Can you see my slides?
Yeah, all good.
Okay. Mark said it all. I will just add a few details on what the resource catalog is and how it fulfills the mission that Mark has described. So, of course, it's all about sharing. It's all about sharing and making your resources more visible, making them reachable by others, making them more interpretable and understandable. In other words, make them findable in ways that are not findable today, beyond your boundaries and within somebody else's boundaries. So the resource catalog is there basically to allow the sharing, so providing the metadata about these resources and how they are interconnected with each other. So how services can be related, but also how services can be related to products and how products can be related between them. Okay. And the idea is that once I share this information, describing it according to this common language that the EOSC defines with the EOSC interoperability framework, then others will be able to interpret and see what I'm sharing and potentially reuse it. So the data model, speaking a language that is slightly technical, of the EOSC resource catalog spins around let's say 5 main entities. The resource, which is this generic term that is used within the EOSC to describe anything that has an identity that I'm willing to share, I'm willing to describe, I'm willing to refer to, I'm willing to link to other things. In this case are services, data sources, and resource products. And providers, on the one hand, which are those providing the resources, and the interoperability guidelines. The interoperability guidelines are here revealing an interesting aspect with respect to the past. So is the idea that we are describing resources also by highlighting which are the interoperability ways they provide. So the guidelines, the protocols, the standards, and how these are to be used to provide access or to consume a given resource. This is an extremely important added value with respect to the past, because we can look at the set of resources with a different perspective. So the one on how I can use them and find them based on how I can use them or combine them with others. And that's extremely important with respect to the past. Then we have services, as we just mentioned. And a special kind of service is what we call a data source. So as a service can be an IT or a horizontal service, as we call them, so services that provide functionalities for many and across different research infrastructures and clusters. Thematic services are those that are very specific to a domain. We also have catalogs of such services, as some have highlighted this morning. And we have also data sources, which are a very specific type. So data sources are the ones typically used by scientists to deposit, preserve the outcomes of the science, namely publications, research data, software, and making them accessible to others in ways that are as fair as possible. So findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So we have examples here like repositories of data, software, or databases. For example, in some scientific databases, in very specific application domains like the life sciences, or aggregators, which are again data sources intended more as catalogs, so that offer access to cross-search functionalities across different data sources, and so on. And then, of course, we have the research products, which are the objects that I just mentioned, typically outcomes of research activities that are hosted by data sources, so they're kept within. Examples taken from the marketplace itself are services of this kind, like GeoHazards, which is very specific to, in this case, the EPOS infrastructure provided by TerraDue, which is the provider behind it. We have the EGI Cloud Compute, which provides access to computing facilities and is provided and resources provided by the EGI. And then we have an example of a service that is a data source, like Zenodo. We all know about it, provided by OpenAir. And Zenodo is one of those sources, one of these services that can host research products, as we have described them before. Now, from the EOSC service point of view, the onboarding takes place as Mark highlighted. You can, as an individual provider, come to the portal, register, provide all the metadata necessary to register your service. and specify if it's a data source or not, and have it onboarded into their service catalog after the proper validation process has taken place, or you are a catalog provider. And in that case, your catalog connects to the service catalog and provides all the profiles as described in the specific domain within this catalog. What is very important here is to establish a sort of delegation approach, where a SLA, a service level agreement, where the catalog makes sure that the data, the profiles of the services are provided with the minimal and quality information required to be part of the service of the EOS service catalog. Research products instead are planned to be in the catalog from September. So they will, in production, of course, they will describe the kind of profiles that we have. They will describe publications like the one exemplified here. This is an article titled Analyzing Twitter Data. They will also refer to data sets, in this case also the connection between the two. So this article is supplemented by this Twitter metadata and also software. In this case, we also have the article providing a link to the metadata described in the software. This metadata has been collected from different data sources. The links have been either inferred or provided by the scientists, and together provide an important knowledge graph that allows us to browse, discover, navigate through all these objects, together with their links to the data sources, so the services that are today in the catalog. So in September, we will have a complete overview on how the services are connected to the products and vice versa, and all these together. In terms of the research product onboarding, this will take place through a different workflow, because we are talking about a different kind of resource. In this case, a data source, which is properly onboarded into the EOSC service catalog, can also provide all the necessary information and metadata to enable a harvesting, transformation, and validation process from the EOS services dedicated to this. In this case, it's the OpenAir provide behind it. So the data source will provide the APIs and the protocols, and will make sure the metadata is collected, validated against the EOSC interoperability guidelines, which are today obeying to the extant OpenAir guidelines. And then the products will be onboarded, which means they will be part of the EOSC resource catalog, as we described this before. Okay, so everything will be interconnected. Most importantly, we are working with the communities to broaden the spectrum of the EOSC interoperability framework that are eligible for research products to become part of the research product catalog. And working with the communities, we're trying to make sure that known metadata formats, which respect certain criteria of critical mass and number of data sources complying to them, can be included as part of the EOSC interoperability framework guidelines for the core. We are working now with the bioschemas, which is a very common format to export information about products in the life science domain within the Elixir. There's a very strong developers community behind it, so we are including it, and we'll make sure this way that all data sources complying with bioschemas, and this is already the case, will be eligible to be part of the EOSC by following the same process that I described before. Okay, so that's all I had to say. If you have any questions, be happy to answer.
Thanks a lot, Paolo. Then we're moving on to our next speaker, who already made an appearance today as well, which is Roxana Wilk. In this session, she's here to present the EOSC Marketplace. For those of you who didn't meet her this morning, Roxana is a leader of an IT and research and development team in the USC Computing Center in Krakow, which specializes in end-to-end IT solutions for science and industry, actively collaborating with science. So Roxana, over to you.
Again, I forgot to unmute. Thank you a lot one more time. Hello again. This time I will tell you something, a little bit of the user-facing capabilities of EOSC platform. And as Paolo has mentioned as well, I will add a little bit more details on the stack that has been already put on the table. So my slot is called a marketplace slot, but I would like to introduce you to this a little bit broader concept of EOSC platform that we are working on in the EOSC Future project. So right now, what we have in our hands is the EOSC marketplace, EOSC portal, which is composed mostly from the marketplace and the provider part of it. And in EOSC Future, we are thinking about expanding both the user-facing part and the provider-facing part. And now next to the marketplace soon will appear new components of the platform that altogether will create something that we have called the front office of the EOSC platform. What you are seeing right now is the functional architecture of the solution that is being worked on, and the main functions that we want to support to serve the EOSC users are connected with what I have already said before, that in the end, we want to serve the users the wholesome environment that supports the research in general, but especially the capability to discover what is needed and to gain access to it with all elements around it that support this idea. So the functions that are right now under development are the navigational functions of the front office. This is the main or the entry gate of the platform that then navigates either the user part or provider part of the platform. The second one, the discover, access, and combine resources. This is will be mainly taking place in the marketplace, and the most important parts of it are the already described today order management and combining resources elements, so the interoperability aspect in the platform itself. Next to it is the discover capabilities, the resource comparison, and personalized resource suggestion. New element that Paolo has kind of meant, or maybe within this element will come something that Paolo has already mentioned. So we'll expand the offer with the research products and later on with another types of resources envisioned in EOSC. Then we have a new element that will be called, or is called right now, the user dashboard, which is about the entry point for the logged in user, which serves the personalized content that might, or that unless the user gives the consent, but to process the data with the use of the AI for the sake of showing the user the elements or the information that from the history of browsing, for example, the system finds most suitable for the user. The next part is about the training capabilities of the platform. So showing every bit of data or information in EOSC that might serve the researchers to know a little bit about its resources, to show what's going on in EOSC, so newsfeed, for example, and access to the training materials, and also on the other end, the provider's capabilities to manage the materials, but it will be on the provider's end. Another part is the open science statistic. There's also a dedicated service for that EOSC observatory, which will serve the data from EOSC world that shows what is the interest of EOSC, for example, what is the number of countries already participating, institutions, etc. Number of data, for example. And the last but not least, the support capabilities of the platform, the place where the researcher can find information or actual support from the real human regarding the EOSC itself or the resources that are being offered within the platform. And here was the placeholder that I was supposed to fill in with benefits for the providers, obviously, but I wanted to show you what benefits for researchers we are foreseeing, because the front office and marketplace is mostly focused on the researchers. Of course, it has its own elements meant for providers, as the order management I've talked about in the previous session, but we share the belief that the more researchers we have, then everybody, both providers and EOSC world, will be happy, because the more researchers we have, the more potential users you might have, the more feedback you might have on the resources you are offering. It's not always, of course, the case that you are seeking out for more researchers for your resources, but in the end, we want to create a platform that is usable, that allows the composition of the resources offered, and the better or the more we focus on the researchers' needs, the better solution we can offer in the end, and hopefully the better solutions at the same time will be offered to you, because knowing the needs from the users somehow reflects the needs of the providers as well, and creates a better EOSC environment for all of us at the end of this road. So, as I have mentioned, one of the planned developments for the coming months is the user panel, which you can imagine is something like, as I said, the personalized space for the user, where the user profile can be accessed and managed. The user settings will be customized to the user's need, and the user can also access the EOSC managed items, but this also requires the consent of the user to process the data of the user within the system. It is also the place to provide to consult with the EOSC experts regarding EOSC matters or resources, and it is also the place where all platform-related activities, especially the combination of the resources, the order management from the user part, and collaboration, which is also foreseen in the project, collaboration between the users as part of the EOSC platform projects will be visible to the user. And also, as mentioned before, the possibility to customize the content of the user panel itself, based on the, but as a result of the manual action of the user. What you are seeing right here is only a proposition of the final visualization of the user panel. The development is ongoing, but what is also ongoing in parallel are the consultations with the researchers to check what is the mostly anticipated on their side for the user panel to be seen as their own environment in EOSC platform. So according to the feedback that we are now collecting, we will put appropriate items inside, but as you can see, one of the asked features was stay updated. So the newsfeed from the EOSC world, the summary of the activity of the user in the EOSC platform, recommended resources based on the AI outputs, recommended publications, etc. The next one, this one was also mentioned by both gentlemen before, so it's cross-catalog discovery. This is all about the visibility and integration with the new type of resource, namely the research products. This is a very vast variety of resources to show to the researchers, which is a very good thing, and we believe that this will be something like a breaking point in EOSC future, because this will give the opportunity to start using the resources anticipated by the users from the very beginning, and set also the grounds for the composability aspects of them with the services already presented and accessible in the platform. Also with this activity, there will be some upgrades regarding the search capabilities, filtering capabilities, and the optimized visualization both of the resources, because with new resources there comes a need for appropriate visualization and presentation of the resources. And the same applies to the providers of such resources. And this is also the presentation of the new elements of the platform that will be available in September, namely the new and improved search engine that includes the research products, and also the visualization of the entry of the research product. And in the end, the one main message from the marketplace or from the marketplace or the catalog that I can give you as the providers is that the content matters. And as we know that the effort that is on you really regarding the onboarding, regarding adding new elements to the EOSC catalog is kind of heavy, then the number of elements you include in the profile, in the description of your resource, does reflect on the presentation of the resource in the end to the researcher. Because first of all, the way how it looks is one thing, but how findable it is, it's the other thing. Because many of the filtering capabilities right now, or all of them really, are basing on the elements in the description. And if you don't give that information, it simply won't be findable. So sometimes it is more work to do, but sometimes it's worth it. So please remember the content matters. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for that presentation, Roxana. I'm handing over to Matthew Viljoen then, who will give a quick overview of how you can onboard resources to EOSC. Matthew is the Service Delivery and Information Management Team Lead at the EGI Foundation, and has been delivering computing and data services to scientific research communities for nearly 20 years. Within EOSC Future specifically, Matthew is leading the work on service planning and delivery. So the perfect person to give you an overview of how you actually onboard things to EOSC. So Matthew, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Catalin. So yes, I'd like to give you a simple high-level overview of what onboarding actually is and why you may choose to do it if you're a resource provider. So by now you're probably quite familiar with this architecture diagram, and onboarding is really the entry of new services to the EOSC exchange. So it's the most straightforward way to enter the ecosystem of EOSC for resource providers, and to leave the different benefits that EOSC delivers, the benefits that you've heard about today. At the bottom, you see the all-important core, including the EOSC portal itself. So this includes aspects like security coordination, help desk, monitoring, accounting and AAI, as well as order management and the Open Science Monitor. There are also, of course, the other aspects included in the EOSC support activities. The training and education is open to you, as well as the EOSC interoperability framework, which gives you the means to interoperate with other services by the family of frameworks that is being developed within the EOSC interoperability framework. So what are the different benefits? Well, I've divided them up into benefits for the service providers and the users, which are quite distinct. So as I said, for service providers, the benefits importantly are the integration with the core, levering from the other EOSC components. It also brings visibility for new users to your service once it's been onboarded. And it also enables your service to be usable, composed with other services, as well as the core, as well, the other onboarded services. Whereas for the users, the benefits include the single point to do a number of different things. So discover the resources, order, access the resources once they've been discovered, and also compose different resources themselves. Here we touch upon a number of the different FAIR aspects we were talking about earlier on, the findability, accessibility, and interoperability as well. So what is the current status of onboarding? So onboarding is done by the EPOT, which is the EOSC portal onboarding team. This was an operational group of people that was set up by EOSC Hub before EOSC Future, and it's continued since then without interruption. It's involved in the past a number of different projects as well. Now it's all within EOSC Future. So it supports the onboarding of both the resource providers and the resources themselves, and their validation against the current rules of participation requirements. It also carries out auditing as well. So once they've been onboarded, we ensure that they continue to adhere to the rules of participation in the future. Some numbers are also included on this slide of number of onboarded resources and resource providers to date. It's not an activity that is ceasing development. A number of new aspects are being developed at the moment, most importantly being the onboarding not only of individual resources, but of catalogues of resources from the different EOSC projects, the regional, the thematic, and the horizontal projects as well. This is also looking at the interoperability between catalogues as well, so updates to one catalogue can be propagated to others. We're also looking at integrating the onboarding of research products, so this ties into the presentation that you heard a little bit earlier on by Paolo Manghi. So what is the criteria that we are using? So there are some high-level rules of participation which the EOSC task force on the rules of participation have developed. But what we've done is we've taken them and translated them to low-level, more concrete requirements that we apply when onboarding new resources. And you can see on this slide an overview of these different criteria. So one thing we do ensure is that providers should be a legal entity, which is asserting that the resource is delivered by them or by their collaborators, and they promise to maintain the description of the resources in the future. This legal entity requirement is really ensuring that into the future that there is accountability of these resources. This is an important aspect. We've got a few other criteria that we apply to resources themselves. At the moment, within the EPOT, we are onboarding live IT services or human services. In the future, as we've said, we'll be onboarding data, software, and other research products. The resources should be mature, ideally TRL level 8. This is the technology readiness level 8. We do accept TRL 7 as well if there is a move it to 8 in the near future. The resources should be targeted to EOSC or EOSC communities, and they should be building on or levering EOSC capabilities. So, okay, that's all very well, but how do you actually onboard? Well, you follow the link at the top, and this brings you to a page where you can click and apply to become a provider. And at this point, you provide some information. On the next slide, you can see a very simple overview of the workflow. First of all, you need to onboard yourself as a provider. That is then validated, at which point you can proceed to onboard your first resource. That is then validated by the EPOT team. Subsequent resources do not need to have explicit validation. However, both resources and providers are subject to audits in the future that, as I said, we make sure that they do continue to adhere to the rules of participation. And if there are any problems, then we work with the onboarded resource providers to try to resolve any issues that are found. I'm coming to the end of my quick talk now. So this was really a taster of what is tomorrow at 2 p.m, which is a much more detailed presentation how to onboard your service to the EOSC portal. We've also prepared a number of videos for one of the EOSC Future deliverables, and you can click on them in this page to see more specific information showing the different steps of the workflow for the different stages onboarding and validating as well. So that, I think, brings me to the end of my presentation. Catherine, back to you.
Thanks a lot, Matthew. We have 2 more presentations left. The next one is by George Papastefanatos, who is presenting the Providers Portal. George is a principal researcher at the Athena Research Center and the technical leader of the EOSC Services Catalog, as well as the EOSC Providers Portal in our EOSC Future project. He is a researcher with a background in big data management and visual analytics. And in the last 5 years, he's mainly been involved in the EOSC portal development activities on all kinds of different EOSC projects. So George, over to you.
Thank you, Catherine. I think you can see now my screen. So
I think it will help for us, George, if you could still put it in slideshow mode. That's the button top right corner of the screen.
Yes, I have put it. I think you can see now in slide mode. I don't know if...
Not yet. Maybe if you could try resharing your screen. Maybe you're sharing.
Yes. All right. Let me. Now, is it better?
Yeah, it works now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I will give you an overview of the Providers Portal. The Providers Portal is actually the main entry point of the providers in the EOSC portal, and it is accessible through this URL, providers.eoscportal.eu. Also, it is accessible in the top level menu when the user would like to presses Providers Dashboard. The main page takes the user to the Providers Portal. So essentially, what is the current, let's say, functionality offered to a provider? First of all, what you can do is to onboard your organization into EOSC, into the European Open Science Cloud. This is the first, let's say, functionality offered to the provider. And then you can start, let's say, registering and start onboarding services. This is the main entities offered now for onboarding into EOSC. And let's say a third area of functionality is start using the APIs. The APIs to programmatically interact with the service catalog and update or add new services or change the information in the catalog. The onboarding process, as Matthew showed before, is a simple, let's say, process with 3 main steps. The first is to register and log in as a representative of your organization, accept the privacy policy, agree to the privacy policy, and assert that you are an authorized representative of the organization you're representing, and fill in some basic information about your organization. The data we request from you are, let's say, grouped into blocks of information. For instance, basic information about your organization, some marketing information, some classification to understand better what is your organization about. And after each step, the EPOT team, the onboarding team, approves, reviews and approves the submitted information. When you have registered your organization, you can start registering your, let's say, services. This is performed through some web forms. These web forms have some steps that you can follow and fill in the information that we call EOSC profiles. And you can save this information as draft, and you can continue at a later stage. You can have online validations and feedback messages in case some information is missing or is invalid. You can preview the information as it will be visible in the marketplace, and other things that help you to more easily fill in the data. Once you submit the form, this is available, and this must be approved by the onboarding team, and after that it is available in the marketplace, publicly available. When you have registered your organization, you have access to your provider dashboard. This is, let's say, a place where you can manage all information regarding your organization, your services. It has actions like to view statistics, to view the history of action you have performed, to add new resources, or to view resources that you share with other organizations. You can also add new resources that will not be publicly available, and you can save them as draft. You can see messages coming from users and other types of actions. These are all available in the dashboard. Also, you can see some statistics that are collected by the marketplace and refer to usage of your services. For instance, visitations, or services that are, let's say, added in a project by the users, or other types of statistics are grouped into charts and visible to in the provided dashboard. You can also see all the actions performed by you or the ePod in a timeline. So you have all the history performed in your services in a timeline. And of course, you can see details about your services, and you can activate it. You can copy and replicate a service description and add it as a new service and other things. Another functionality is that you have a view on of statistics on the entire service catalog, not only at your services, but also all the services and providers which are registered in the catalog. And there are different charts visualizing distribution of resources per different categories of services, per country, per target users, and other things. This also is accessible by providers in the providers portal. Finally, the APIs offers all the methods to programmatically interact with the catalog. They group the methods into controllers based on the different type of entity you would like to update. For instance, you have the provider controller that offers the methods to add a new provider, to update a provider, or to get information for the providers you are managing. And the same goes for the services and other things like the vocabularies that are used by the EOSC profile. For using the APIs, you must authorize and you must take a token, an access token. You can go to this link and you can use the EOSC AAI credentials, and you can start and you can use this, link to have a token and use it in every call you do in the API. So this is, let's say, the current status, and for the upcoming release of June and September, the new features include the support of the next version of the profiles. Now we are, let's say, in the version 3.0, and the next version, which, let's say, follows the 4.0 version, will be available in the upcoming releases. This will have a migration of the contents and the APIs to the new profile, but essentially this migration will be seamless, especially for the web UI. So it will require minor changes for the providers. Also, the extensions of the onboarding process will include more types of resources which will be available for onboarding, catalogs and data sources. It will also allow the integration of core services during the onboarding process and the configuration of core services like monitoring, help desk, and like the ones you have seen in the morning session, and the rebranding and the extension of the providers portal to include management and functionality to manage the entire resource catalogs and not only services. So essentially, this is, let's say, a slide that Paolo also showed before. What the new onboarding process will offer is for individual providers, as it is now, to onboard providers, services, or data sources. And this will be available via web or the API. But also it will include organizations that act, let's say, on behalf of other individual providers to onboard a catalog and start using the APIs to update providers, services coming from these providers and data sources, actually to onboard and synchronize catalogs with the service, the EOSC service catalog. Everything populates the service catalogs, and this information is further propagated to the rest, to the other components of the EOSC portal, the EOSC core, like the marketplace, the resource graph, which links together services and research products together, and other EOSC core components. But also the APIs give, let's say, a way, a programmatic way for other catalogs from the EOSC exchange to retrieve data and interact with the service catalog. This is, let's say, the big picture. The new feature will bring new functionality, new web UI in the portal. The user can now add a new catalog, not add a new provider, and also configure more information about a service to actually integrate functionality from the monitoring and the help desk. And finally, a provider can enter information about a data source, not only about a service. Finally, as I said before, the providers portal will soon be rebranded as a uniform portal for managing all the resources that will be available by the EOSC portal in the marketplace. Not only services, not only catalogs, but the full variety of research product catalogs, publications, data sets, software, and other research resources included. The service catalog will be based on the current, let's say, provider's dashboard, and also the opener provide will serve as the basis for the provider's portal for the research product catalog. So this essentially closes my presentation. Thank you all. And I will pass the floor to Mark, I think.
Yeah, we are ending this round of presentations exactly where we started, which is with a presentation by Mark, this time on the EOSC profiles and automated updates. So Mark, back to you.
Thanks very much, Katrine. Let me now perform my feat of technical skill. Look at that. So we've had quite a lot of material presented over the last hour or so. You've seen an awful lot of detail about how the EOSC resource catalog, all of the inner workings, and in fact, the changes that we're working on. So for you in the audience as providers, we understand that this is a lot of information, and we're not expecting you to sort of keep track of all the details. These changes are going to be described to you in a very coherent, combined way in the coming weeks. So we're developing that material. We'll be reaching out to sort of set up the times to share our plans, make sure that you're well informed about how things will evolve, not only as we run up to the June release, but also as we run up to a September release. So our objective in all of this is to make sure that we're improving our capabilities for you as providers, improving the value on both sides of the screen, the providers and the users, and at the same time making sure that if there are any, shall we say, slightly new things that affect the way you need to do things, we're going to give you ample time to get ready for that and to respond. So I don't want any of you to be concerned about what you've seen if it's all new. We will provide a more detailed walkthrough of this over the time. Now, my little section here is on the profiles and the various automated updates. And George, just a moment ago, and Paolo earlier talked about APIs and where these APIs work and where in general the fields that we work with, the information types that we work with to make all of this work, this all lives inside the EOSC profiles. And I'm not going to give you a link to a page, a web page, or a wiki page with the details. We need to improve our documentation. So if you look at it now and you're dissatisfied, you can stand in line behind me because I'm already dissatisfied, and we're going to improve that in the coming weeks. And when we do have fresh information, clear information about how all these things work, we will share that with you as part of our communications activities. But very quickly, right now, I just want to say that the profiles are simply the metadata standard that we use to communicate, that providers can use to communicate with the EOSC resource catalog. George just showed some of the workflows and the places where the APIs come into effect. So this green cloud right now, we have profiles for services and for providers. And this is the specification for how the APIs work. And it also tells you the fields that you would be asked to fill in if you use the web interface, the provider's portal interface. In the future, as I said, we're making some changes. We're adding new resource types. We're creating or integrating another mechanism for entering new information, namely the research products portal. And all of these have their own profiles that exist today in what's called EOSC Profiles version 4. It is available in the wiki, private wiki for EOSC Future. It is described, perhaps not perfectly, in the provider's documentation. We will be providing better details on all of this shortly, but you'll find the profiles for services, providers, data sources, catalogs, and research products. And these will be the specifications for how you describe these things to the EOSC resource catalog. The purpose, if we go back a moment, the original purpose of these is to provide consistent information, which delivers a better user experience. And the same is still true. We want to maintain consistent information. In fact, we want to improve the consistency of the information in the catalog. And that in turn will contribute to a quality user experience. Again, I make the analogy or the metaphor of you go to Google or a search engine, you type something in and you get 20 million pages that might match what you need. And unluckily, we only have several hundred services in the EOSC resource catalog, but our intent is to add not only services, but also hundreds of thousands of research products by virtue of connecting with the open air capability. And you will need better abilities to search for that. And that is accomplished by having clearer information in the profiles. So that's our objective in all of this. And as I say, if you have questions, I have provided my email. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have immediately. We can talk about it right now in the meeting. But as we get into our own communications plan to describe what's coming up, always available to help you with any concerns or help you navigate what's happening. So thank you very much. And that's, last point, user-facing capabilities. I'm repeating what's already been said. Linking services from other catalogs, identifying services with EC funding, European Commission funding, expanding the range of research products that you can access, showing how to access them through the data sources that are in the catalog, and even other capabilities are in progress. And we'll be talking to you more about that in the run-up to September. So thank you very much. And that's all from me. Katrine.
Thanks a lot, Mark. We're moving on to the Slido then, which we'll share on the screen here as well. There's a first question there, which has been upvoted many times, which is whether there's any use cases and what are typical users question the portal can answer and which one it cannot. there, I think I would need some clarification from whoever posted that question, if they can unmute themselves. What specifically you're talking about in terms of use cases? Are you talking providers, what providers can provide, or what do you mean specifically? I don't know whether that person could unmute themselves.
That's actually me, that's Susanna, I posted the question. I was very much interested in more research question, because in several occasions, the mention of researchers, survey researchers come up. So they search for data, they search for certain study. If it would be nice to have more specific type of question that the portal can address, and which one the portal doesn't intend to address. Thank you.
I'll forward that to our panel. I do want to point out that specifically today we're trying to focus not on what can researchers do with this, but what could researchers provide. So I don't know whether we have the right people in the session to answer this question. I think
I can try.
Go ahead, Roxana.
But it will be a very vague answer, really. So I'm not sure if I will satisfy Susanna your question. What are the typical users' questions the portal can answer and which one cannot? So right now there are several use cases that the portal is supporting. Namely, if the user is the easiest one, if the user knows the service that is coming to, the service can be found. If the user can insert some data about him as in the research profile, the portal can support his inquiry about the services, but etc. I can go on. So mostly about the discovery of the services, about the possibility of what are the solutions in EOS that can support a given use case, research use case. But what I would like to emphasize, what are the typical users' questions the portal can answer? This is something that is still ongoing in the area of UX research in the project. So this is one of the questions really we want to know the answer to. What are the most common use cases that the researchers want or imagine that can be fulfilled within the portal? Of course, we have, or in the platform, of course, we have our own vision, but what is important right now is to get the voice of the researchers themselves. So yeah, I'm not sure if this satisfies your question.
I think that is a very broad answer for like a very broad set of use cases that EOSC is supposed to be able to address. I think in terms of discovery, just from my point of view, it would be interesting to find tools there. For instance, what Paolo presented, he's given so many presentations that I don't know whether it was in this session or the previous one, but he showed a tool that would be there for scraping Twitter. There, for instance, that's just you could discover a tool there that normally you would have to program yourself. He linked to a GitHub repository where that's already there, and there's multiple applications for that from my field for linguistics. But for instance, also let's say that you do disaster response and you want to have a look at what are people tweeting in specific areas about disasters, or how can you pick up on disasters happening in places where you might not have a good disaster response system that monitors that for you. So that is something super specific that EOS could help you with, because normally it's a tool that you would have to develop from scratch and you would be able to find something there. But I think the goal is also to look more at integration and reuse, so that you'd be able to set up a workflow there, so that normally, let's say you want to analyze a data set or take part of a data set, that EOS can help you with that, specifically taking part of a data set as well. And if that's something that you want to do multiple times, maybe for multiple data sets, I think long-term view is that that workflow would also be something that would be facilitated. So I think there's a variety of things that would be possible. So that is why it's difficult, I think, to give concrete examples. That being said, we are collecting use cases on the EOSC portal as well. So we're, I think, publishing about one a week, one every 2 weeks right now. And I see Kostas has his hand up. So Kostas, feel free to unmute yourself. And I hope I didn't say anything too wrong there.
I didn't say nothing wrong. I just wanted to say that no, people tend to think that EOSC is one unique thing that will solve everything. Well, it's quite the opposite. EOSC is just a framework, just a bunch of tools, or let's say an integration layer that exists in order for everyone to integrate with, to offer their services, their data sets, their resources in general. EOSC is the, let's say, a new way of thinking, one can say, that we all need to contribute and drive, so that is actually helpful and useful for all the researchers and the research communities out there. Right, the core team that we present today, that is responsible for delivering the EOSC core, the portal, the marketplace, and all the other tools, can go to some extent and explain and try to use their expertise in order to offer a bit more valuable services. It's up to the communities to actually use that, provide feedback, so that this can be driven to something greater.
Susanna, I hope that answers your question. What I want to move on to next is the second question that got a lot of upvotes there, which is on common hurdles or blocks for providers considering joining the portal. And I don't know, Matthew, whether you could speak to that as a member of the ePod team, or whether I should forward this question maybe to any providers in the audience. So Matthew, I don't know whether you have a good view on that.
Yeah, we have encountered a number of problems in the past, and a good number of those problems have really been not fully appreciating or understanding the rules of participation as they are applied by ourselves. I think that's the biggest one, really. We have had a number of difficult cases where we ourselves have had to refine our own rules of participation implementation. So this has probably been the biggest headache from my point of view, but I'll be very interested to hear from any providers here from their point of view as well.
So I don't know whether there's anyone here that thinks, actually, I have an example of this, of what a roadblock was for me, hopefully one that we've been able to resolve, and if not, maybe that's good input for us to know that that's a roadblock you're facing. So maybe raise your hand if you think, okay, actually I have something to say here, I'm currently a provider. If not, then let's move on to a next question, which is a super specific one. Which is IRD from France, who have a dataverse of different research data sets about science in the South. And they're asking, like, how can we participate in EOSC? I don't know whether that's something you can say top of your heads, anyone, or would you need more information to be able to give you any inputs there?
I can take this one, Catherine. It's Paolo here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Dataverse is has modules to be open air and therefore EOSC compliant. So if you have registered your data repository in open air and provided your resources through it, then you will be already in September, basically. If not, just try to register to the platform and it will come as a consequence in September. Dataverse is by default EOSC compliant.
Okay, so I'm hoping that's good news for you, or IRD, so that maybe you can onboarding there. Another question is, if you have problems onboarding, who to turn to, whether there's a one-on-one.
By the way, I noticed that you're already in the system, so you should be fine.
Yeah, I thought I saw a Dataverse, but I didn't know it was the same one. So yeah.
No, it's IRD, it's HAL IRD, right? So if that's the one.
So that's then good news for you.
Oh, no, that's HAL. Sorry, that's HAL, not the Dataverse one.
Okay. So a question someone had is the support that's available when you're onboarding and running into problems, specifically whether there's any one-on-one support available. Maybe is that another question you could take, Matthew, as part of the onboarding team?
Yeah, so we have a mailing list, and I'm pretty sure it's onboarding at eosc-portal.eu, but one of my colleagues will correct me if that's not the case. So we can respond to problems with through this.
Okay. Matthew, could you maybe post that, that email address in the chat?
Yes, I've put it in.
Great, thanks. Then you have a question there, Wilmar, about use cases that the interoperability guidelines aim to enable, but I would ask you to ask that question in the next session, which is about interoperability, because the speaker there will be better placed to answer that. So I was thinking then to take, it's again more a user-faced question, someone asking whether EOS Marketplace is targeting individual researchers and how many individuals are using it. I don't know top of our heads whether we can give you the statistics on how many people are actually using it. I think, is it aimed at individual researchers? Definitely. Is there anyone here who has the stats on how many people are using it right now? It's a deafening silence, so I'm guessing no. I would not know that top of my head either, but we can try to find out for you. I think, although EOSC has been in the works for quite a while, getting everything sort of centralized and accessible in central place is a long process. And there, I think it's sort of the chicken and egg problem, that in the sense that more people will start using it as more things become available. But of course, it's only really interesting for providers to make things available if there's people using it. So I think in this project and in other projects as well, we're trying to tackle that on two fronts and making sure that we get more resources onboarded on the one hand, and then on the other hand, really doing outreach to users and potential users in other events, because this is really the provider days. Then I see, Mark, you have some input on that as well, so go ahead.
I just want to make the point that, as you say, it's a chicken and egg question. And in general, in marketplaces and platforms like this, the platform, the marketplace or the catalog becomes more interesting the more stuff that is in it. And the easier it is to navigate, and the easier it is to put the pieces together. So that's what we're working on. A lot of the changes that we've been describing over the last hour and a quarter have really been all about trying to make it easier to bring new services in, to make it easier to describe them in a clear way so that people can find what they need. And eventually, we're not there right now, but we hope to be there quite soon, so that the services work together. They work together with data sources, and they work together with the other pieces of the EOSC world, things like help desk and monitoring and accounting and all that kind of stuff. That makes the services more valuable. So as you know, chicken and egg is the right answer. I'm just providing a little bit more color to the chicken and egg situation. So I'm hoping that our communities, the providers, both the providers and users, will be patient and work with us to help to enhance what's inside the catalog and make it more interesting for the other side of the platform. If you're a provider, providing the additional information that makes it more useful to users, and if you're users, to try to use what's there a little bit and sort of benefit from the features that are being added over time. So just a quick, maybe I'm just advertising.
No, advertising is, I think, partly what we're here for today. So that's good. I think Roxana had something to add as well.
Yeah, because I may have overslept the question here, because if I, am I correct that it's the question about the marketplace targeting individual researchers?
Yes.
So I would only add that from our perspective, the user base for the platform or for the marketplace is one thing, but it's very important also who you discover or who you acknowledge are your individuals. If the providers do serve individual researchers, and if these providers will join the platform, then yes, we are targeting individual researchers, and individual researchers are right now in our list of our potential user types in the platform. And we do have numbers about the individuals, and they are not, you know, great, because these are like hundreds enters every day. But it's also about what Mark has said and Catherine has said. First of all, it's about different interaction, because it's one thing that somebody goes through the catalog. It's another thing if somebody orders and actually gets access to the resources available there. And again, the better the platform will be, then we're hoping the more researchers will join. But it's not only about the platform, it's also about its content. So the services hosted and available to the end users, which are working and might support their research. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that clarification, Roxana. A question that has just gotten a few upvotes is someone is asking whether the B2 Find resources will be directly findable in the portal as well. Is there anyone that can speak to that?
Yes, B2 Find is already in. Because it's one of the data sources harvested by OpenAir, and indirectly all the data sources in B2 Find are into the graph, and therefore it will be available as part of the EOSC resource catalog.
Yeah, so I think the answer there is but it's forthcoming when the OpenAir research graph is integrated, right? Or
yes.
So not yet, but it will be.
I'm sorry, I don't think that's the question of. I don't think that's the gist of the question. I think the question is about whether the data findable within B2 Find will be accessible from the portal layer. I think that's the question, really. And I would say that the answer is it's not decided yet.
Okay, because I think, so it's then the difference between whether it will be findable or whether it will be accessible.
So the question claimed that the person who asked the question knows it's already in as a service.
Yes.
But will the resources in B2 Find be directly findable in the portal? So they will be, according to the integration with OpenAir's solution, but the level of findability is still yet to decide. There is this level of integration as it is right now. It's still up to decide if it will be. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that because in B2 Find you can put in the metadata in order to find the data sets or the data itself, if whatever the scientist wants to find. And if I understand correctly, that's the idea of this question. Will it be the same functionality moved on the portal layer?
Okay, yeah. So the idea is that it will be findable in a way in EOSC, but not necessarily in the same way as it is in B2 Find. So,
exactly.
Okay. So I don't know whether whoever asked this question, whether that clarifies it. I think it is one of the areas where we're still clarifying what this will look like. So I'd say stay tuned in the coming months, because we will get more clarity on that soon for you. Then a question that is still there is whether there's a way for service providers to find the type of user that they want to target. So for instance, to mark services that are earmarked for certain use cases. Who is best placed to take that question? Maybe Paulo? Or maybe not. Is there anyone?
I think I might help because it's part of the marketplace, or George, because it's also a part of the provider's portal part. But in general, yeah, that's the filtering capabilities that we've been mentioning. So as a part of the description for the resource, a service can claim what types of users in terms of user types or scientific disciplines is the service or resource supporting. There has not been a discussion about putting it the other way around. So the capability for the provider to find users that might be interested in their service, it's an interesting use case. Yeah, but the other way around is available. So the user can find services which are tagged with the right information.
Okay.
Yes, just to add here, Roxana is right. It's very interesting the other way around, when the provider actually enters data about the services, how to, let's say, flag appropriately what are the main target users. I mean, this would be very interesting. There is, let's say, standard classification of the types of users that the provider can choose, not only one, there is a multiple selection. But if this is not very helpful, then it would be interesting to hear other ideas. I mean, not having the provider explicitly add some a type of user, but to suggest or have some kind of other type of classification. But for the moment, the provider can manually select one or more types of users that the service is primarily targeting to.
Okay, I hope that clarifies it. Then there was one question that got so many upvotes so quickly that I completely missed it, which is what the current process is for defining and improving the EOSC profiles, so the specifications for onboarding, and how providers can get involved there. And I think, Mark, that will be a question for you.
Thank you, Katrine. Yes, that's a great question. We were, in fact, having a meeting this morning about precisely this issue. There was a process in place for EOSC Enhance, a project that finished up last year that took care of this. And that process has not been fully carried over into EOSC Future, which is the project that's currently going on right now. And in fact, we're trying to figure out a way to find a home for that process that is not stuck inside a project. We want it to live on from, between projects so that it doesn't die every couple of years. So that's an active topic that we're working on right now. We're very interested in getting input from the people who are affected by it, either in terms of those who want to benefit from the way the profiles are written, or those who feel they need to comply with the way the profiles are structured. And note that that's also a function of the rules of participation. And Matthew's made some comments about that. And so we're trying to put all those pieces together. In the meantime, if there are concerns that you have, I am very willing to receive those comments and make sure that they don't get lost. So if you want to reach out to me personally, I'm more than happy to either try to answer a question right away, give you an update on where things stand, or if it's something we haven't thought about, try to figure out how to put that into the process. I will say that there are two issues. One is that we want the profiles to be responsive to the needs and to enable capabilities in the whole EOSC world, such as it is. But we also don't want to introduce so much change that it makes things complicated for people to keep up with. So we're trying to balance those two things. There may be some, shall we say, minor changes in terms of small versions being released, and then there might be more major releases of the profiles with more significant changes, with more significant benefits, but also impact. So we'll be trying to manage that process and in a way that is as low impact as possible for everybody affected. But again, happy to get any thoughts or input.
Okay, I think maybe, Mark, if people want to give input there, how could they get in touch? Is there an official channel for that?
Right now there isn't, so get in touch with me. I put my email into the chat. I'll do it again.
Right. So
we are going to do, sort of like onboarding. The onboarding email will do the same thing on the profiles.
Okay. So I think you can all start spamming Mark. I see that there's a raised hand. I'm just trying to find who that is. So that's Kostas. Kostas, do you want to give some extra input there?
Yes. One should take into account that the EOSC profile is the language we use in order to come from quite a few services to communicate. One of the aspects we didn't touch today is that the EOSC profile is let's say, one of the first in interoperability frameworks we use so that the regional or thematic catalogs can actually send us resources, send their profiles towards the central one, right? So any change happening there is a bit more tricky in the sense we cannot go and revamp the profiles fully. We can adapt, we can change, we can propose for the next release of the profiles to this for something to be included, so that the whole ecosystem can follow along. We cannot do rapid changes. This, on one hand, can seem quite limiting. On the other hand, it allows for the whole ecosystem to follow along, which is something we want to build upon. We understand that the profiles may have some, say, difficulties, problems, or complexity that may need to be simplified, but it's a process that takes quite some time, exactly because we want to build it along with the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, so I think it will be an ongoing process, as Kostas said. I think we've now covered all questions in Slido. So if there's anything else you want to ask, then please do so now. If not, I'm going to wrap up, and then I'm hoping to see you again in about 15 minutes at 15 past the hour for the final session of the day on interoperability, and specifically the proposed EOSC interoperability framework. So hope to see you all back then, and thanks to all our speakers for another round of interesting presentations. So see you all soon.